There was a time when a person could sit for hours with a single object. A jeweler bent over a tiny stone. A grandmother knitting the same pattern, stitch after stitch. A carpenter sanding the same piece of wood until it felt right beneath the hand. No notifications, no second screen, no need to be entertained every 12 seconds. Just attention. Quiet, patient, almost sacred attention. And now we struggle to watch a 3-minute video without checking another app. We open a book and feel restless after 2 pages. We sit in silence and immediately reach for noise. Something has happened to us. And the truth is, it did not happen dramatically. It happened so slowly that we didn't even realize it. Our attention has been trained away from us. The strange thing is that most people do not feel distracted. They feel normal. They wake up, check their phone, reply to messages, scroll through news, open a video, skip the intro, speed it up, read comments, check another tab, forget why they opened the first one, and then they wonder why the day feels thin, why conversations feel shallow, why work feels harder than it should, why rest no longer feels restful. We call this modern life, but perhaps modern life is simply what happens when the mind is never allowed to land anywhere. Attention is not just the ability to focus. It is the ability to stay on something long enough for it to reveal itself. I think of a book I read in my youth, a fantastic piece of literature called Ulysses. A book that almost feels impossible to read in the 21st century because it asks for a kind of attention we are no longer trained to give. James Joyce, its author, once wrote, "Shut your eyes and see." And perhaps that is the exact opposite of what modern life teaches us. Modern life says, keep your eyes open, keep scrolling, keep reacting. Joyce says, close the door, enter the mind, stay there long enough for something strange to appear. Feed your mind and let your imagination run free. Let your critical thinking emerge and your body feel calmer because for once, you are not being pulled away from yourself. For much of human history, people did things that took time. They knitted sweaters, they copied books by hand, they repaired shoes, they cultivated gardens. They walked long distances by foot. They played entire pieces of music without skipping to the best part. They watched bread rise. They wrote letters and waited weeks for a reply. Not everything was optimized. Not everything had to scale. Not everything had to become content. Some things were done because the doing itself shaped the person. Knitting is not just about making a scarf. It teaches rhythm, patience, repetition, tolerance for boredom. And perhaps most importantly, it teaches the mind that not every reward should arrive immediately. We often speak about lost traditions as if they were only objects. Old books, old houses, old furniture, old ways of dressing. But perhaps the deeper loss is not visible. Perhaps we lost certain inner abilities, the ability to wait, the ability to listen without preparing a reply, the ability to read slowly, the ability to look at the same painting for more than 10 seconds, the ability to be alone without turning loneliness into entertainment. A distracted person does not only lose productivity. That is the boring part. A distracted person loses depth. And depth is where most of life actually happens. Boredom used to be a doorway. Now it is treated like a disease. The moment boredom appears, we medicate it with stimulation. A short video, a song, a message, a podcast, a snack, a new tab, another little escape. But boredom is not always emptiness. Sometimes boredom is the mind detoxing from constant novelty. Sometimes it is the first stage of thinking. At first, silence feels uncomfortable, then it becomes spacious. At first, repetition feels pointless, then it becomes calming. At first, slowness feels like failure, then it begins to feel like freedom. What you pay attention to becomes your life. Not metaphorically, literally. Your life is not only made of the years you live, it is made of the moments you actually inhabit. If your attention is constantly pulled into fragments, your life begins to feel fragmented too. A little outrage here, a little comparison there, a little fantasy, a little fear, a little noise, and somewhere beneath all of it, a quieter self waits. The self that can think, the self that can create, the self that can notice rain on a window, the smell of paper, the exact color of evening light. That self is not gone. It is simply buried under too many interruptions. The answer is not to disappear into the woods, although, admittedly, the woods have made a strong argument. More and more people migrate towards the quiet life of an Italian village and far away from the maddening crowds. But the answer is sometimes smaller. And perhaps not all of us have the luxury of living a life devoid of noise. So what can we do to bring ourselves closer to a more unrushed life? Choose one thing each day that cannot be rushed. Read 10 pages without checking your phone. Make tea without doing anything else. Walk without headphones. Write 1 page by hand. Cook slowly. Repair something. Clean your desk with care. Sit by a window and let your mind become bored enough to wake up. You're not wasting time. You're training your mind. You're teaching your attention that it does not have to sprint toward every bright object. You're teaching your mind to stay. A jeweler does not become precise by wanting precision. They become precise by returning to the work, again and again. A knitter does not create warmth by rushing. They create it 1 stitch at a time, and a person does not recover their attention through one dramatic decision. They recover it in small acts of refusal. Refusing to check, refusing to rush, refusing to turn every quiet moment into background noise. The modern world will keep asking for your attention. Aggressively, endlessly, through infinite distractions and instant gratifications. But your attention is not a small thing. It is the doorway to your thoughts, your memory, your taste, your patience, your character. Guard it as well as you can, because attention is how you remain alive to your own life. Once you understand that, the next question becomes simple. How do you begin again? How do you stop rushing through your days as if life was something to finish? How do you relearn slowness in a world that rewards speed? If you want to improve your life, perhaps the first step is not to do more. Perhaps it is to do less, to move more slowly, to think more deeply, to listen more carefully, to return to ordinary things with full attention. If what you've heard here spoke to you, check the video on the screen right now in which we talk about the lost art of living slowly and how we can recover it in 2026. Not as an escape from life, not for an Instagram facade, but as a way of finally entering it, as a way of being in the world.